Maya walked through the long, narrow hallways of Colony Kappa 7. The walls were painted in soft white, but the constant hum of machines and the faint smell of recycled air made the place feel cold and mechanical. Maya worked in the colony's main mess hall, a place where hundreds of workers, engineers, and officers came to eat every day. To most people, she was just the lunch lady. But Maya was more than that. She was smart, patient, and careful. Yet, no one seemed to notice. Every morning, Maya arrived early to prepare the meals. The mess hall was busy from dawn to dusk, filled with workers who barely had time to eat. Maya served food quickly, always with a small smile. Her dark skin and gentle eyes made her easy to remember. But many ignored her. The engineers often laughed at her. "How can a lunch lady understand machines?" they would say with a sneer. Officers would whisper jokes when they thought she wasn't listening. Maya had heard it all before. At first, it hurt her feelings, but over time, she learned to ignore the laughter. She focused on her work. Maya was quiet, but she paid close attention to everything around her. She loved to watch how machines worked, how small parts fit together. As a young girl, she had dreamed of becoming an engineer, but life had other plans. After some troubles in her past, she left her studies and took this job to support her family. Still, her mind was sharp, and she kept learning by reading old manuals and watching the engineers from afar. One day, Maya was carrying a tray full of steaming food to a table when she overheard a group of engineers talking near the mess hall door. They were discussing the colony's newest machine, the oxygen recycler. This machine was very important to clean and recycle the air, so everyone could breathe safely. But it was also very complicated. "It's acting strange," said one engineer, a tall man with tired eyes named Jordan. "The oxygen levels are dropping faster than they should. If this keeps up, people won't have enough air." Another engineer, a woman named Tira, shook her head. "We don't know what's wrong. The sensors show nothing unusual. I've checked the system twice already." Maya stopped for a moment. She wanted to say something, but she didn't. She knew they wouldn't listen to her. After all, she was just the lunch lady. The engineers walked away, and Maya went back to her work. But the worry stayed in her mind. She knew the oxygen recycler was the heart of the colony. If it failed, the whole place would be in danger. That evening, Maya sat in her small room, a simple space with only a bed and a desk. She opened a dusty manual she had borrowed from the colony's old library. The book was thick and heavy, filled with drawings and instructions about machines like the oxygen recycler. She read carefully, trying to remember everything. Her friend, Lena, a nurse who worked nearby, knocked on her door. "Maya, dinner's ready. You should come eat." Maya smiled softly. "Thanks, Lena. I'll be there soon." Lena sat down beside her. "You've been quiet today. Something on your mind?" Maya nodded. "The oxygen recycler. It's not working right, but the engineers don't know why. I'm worried." Lena looked surprised. "You understand those machines?" Maya hesitated. "I studied engineering a little when I was younger. I never finished, but I know enough to help. I just don't think anyone will listen." Lena reached out and took Maya's hand. "You never know. Maybe they need help more than they admit." The next morning, the colony was filled with tension. Messages warned that oxygen levels were dropping dangerously low. The engineers gathered in the control room, staring at flashing screens. Maya was serving lunch when she saw Jordan again. He looked stressed and tired. Something inside her pushed her forward. "Excuse me, Jordan," Maya said quietly. He turned and looked at her, surprised. "Yes? I think I might be able to help with the oxygen recycler. I have some experience with these machines." Jordan frowned. "You? The lunch lady?" Maya held her ground. "Please, just give me a chance. I don't want to cause trouble. I just want to help." Jordan looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. "All right, come with me." In the control room, the engineers gathered around as Maya stepped forward. She didn't have the fancy uniform or the high-tech tools they did, but she had something else: focus and knowledge. Maya studied the data on the screens, her eyes sharp and careful. She asked questions and listened to the engineer's answers. Slowly, she began to see what they had missed. The sensors, Maya said quietly. They might be giving false readings because of a small clog in the filter system. It's too small to trigger an alarm, but it's enough to reduce oxygen output. Jordan shook his head. We've checked those filters twice. They're clean. Maya smiled gently. Sometimes the problem is not what we expect. Can I take a closer look at the machine itself? After a moment of silence, the lead engineer nodded. Fine. But be careful. This is a complex system. Maya went down to the machine room, where the oxygen recycler stood tall and humming. The pipes and wires were confusing, but she moved with purpose. She examined the filters carefully and noticed a thin layer of dust blocking one small valve. It was easy to miss, but it made a big difference. She cleaned the valve carefully and adjusted a small lever nearby. The machine's hum changed. It sounded smoother, stronger. Back in the control room, the engineers watched the oxygen levels slowly rise. A cheer went up. Jordan looked at Maya with new respect. You really did it. Maya smiled, but she stayed humble. It was a small problem. I'm just glad it's fixed. But the engineers who laughed at her before began to whisper. In surprise, the lunch lady had saved the colony from disaster. As the day ended, Maya returned to the mess hall. The laughter was gone, replaced by nods and smiles. Maybe they still didn't fully understand her, but something had changed. Maya served dinner with her usual kindness, feeling a quiet pride. She knew this was only the beginning. After the small victory in the control room, things in Colony Kappa 7 seemed calmer for a short while. The oxygen recycler hummed steadily again, and the people inside the colony breathed easier. But deep inside the walls of the colony, a more serious problem was waiting to surface. Maya had returned to her usual work in the mess hall, but her mind stayed on the machines. She could not stop thinking about what might happen if the oxygen recycler failed again, or worse, if a larger problem appeared. She had seen how close the colony came to disaster, and it scared her. The next morning, Maya arrived early as usual, carrying trays and checking the kitchen supplies. The colony was quiet, but an uneasy feeling hung in the air. The usual hum of machines sounded different. Some alarms were faintly ringing in the distance. Suddenly, a loud announcement echoed over the colony's intercom system. The voice of Commander Hale, a serious man in charge of colony security, filled every hallway. Attention, all personnel. We are experiencing an emergency in the colony's life support systems. The oxygen recycler is showing signs of serious malfunction. All non-essential personnel should prepare for possible evacuation protocols. Engineers are working to diagnose the problem. Stay calm and follow instructions. The announcement sent a wave of fear through the colony. People stopped what they were doing, eyes wide with worry. Maya saw faces filled with confusion and panic. In the mess hall, workers and officers gathered in small groups, speaking in worried whispers. Some looked toward Maya, hoping for answers. She felt their eyes, full of hope and fear. Maya knew she had to do something. She wiped her hands on her apron and made her way toward the control room, where the engineers were busy. This time, the mood there was different, tense and urgent. Screens blinked with red warnings. The oxygen levels were dropping fast. Jordan, the lead engineer, looked up when he saw Maya enter. Maya, he said, voice heavy, thank you for coming. We're facing something worse than before. The recycler's filters are clogged again, but that's not all. The system's core processor is showing errors. We can't find the cause. Maya studied the screen showing the life support system. She could see the numbers falling, the oxygen shrinking with every second. Tira, the other engineer, added, if this keeps up, the colony will lose breathable air in less than 24 hours. We need a fix fast. Maya's heart pounded. This was more than a small clog. It was a crisis. She thought about the people who depended on the colony's air, the workers, the children, the elderly. If the engineers couldn't fix it, who could? Jordan looked tired and frustrated. We're checking every system we can, but this processor error is strange. It doesn't make sense. It's like something inside is broken. but we can't reach it without shutting down the entire system, which would be dangerous. Maya swallowed hard. Is there any way to manually reset or bypass the processor? Jordan shook his head. No, it's too complex. If we do, the whole system might fail. Maya thought for a moment. What about an older model? Does the colony have any backup machines? Maybe we can use parts from them. Tira looked surprised. We have one old oxygen recycler in storage, but it's outdated and slow. It was supposed to be replaced years ago. Maya nodded. Sometimes old machines can be helpful. We should check it out. Without waiting, Maya and the engineers hurried to the storage room deep inside the colony. The old recycler sat there, covered in dust and forgotten. It looked simple compared to the shiny new model, but it was still powerful. Jory inside. It might be our last hope. Maya's eyes shone with determination. Let's see what we can do. Back in the control room, the engineers worked quickly to connect the old recycler to the colony's systems. The process was difficult. Wires had to be matched, controls were programmed, and settings adjusted. Time was running out. Maya moved between the engineers, offering ideas and solutions. Her calm voice and clear thoughts helped the team stay focused. Suddenly, the alarms grew louder. A message flashed on the main screen. Warning: oxygen level critical. Immediate action required. The colony's population was ordered to begin emergency breathing protocols. Masks were distributed, and many people began to feel short of breath. Anxiety filled the halls. Maya felt a sharp pain in her chest watching the panic. She wanted to scream, to tell everyone it would be okay, but she couldn't. Instead, she focused on the work. Hours passed like minutes. The engineers struggled to make the old recycler work with the new system. Maya carefully checked every detail, pointing out small mistakes that could cause failure. Finally, after what seemed like an endless effort, the old recycler powered on. It worked slower than the new model, but it began to process the air. The oxygen levels started to rise slowly. The relief was immediate. People stopped gasping and lowered their masks. The alarms quieted. The colony breathed again. Commander Hale entered the control room, his face serious but thankful. Good work, all of you. You saved many lives today. He looked at Maya, and for the first time, he spoke directly to her. Your help made the difference. I underestimated you. Maya smiled softly. I'm just glad I could help. That night, Maya returned to her small room, exhausted but proud. She knew the colony was safe for now, but the crisis had shown how fragile their world really was. She sat by the small window, looking out at the stars beyond the colony's walls. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness, other colonies faced similar dangers. She wondered how many people like her were waiting for their chance to prove themselves. Maya felt a new strength inside her. She was not just a lunch lady. She was someone who could make a difference even when others doubted her. Tomorrow, she decided, she would speak to the leaders of the colony. Maybe then they would listen. Maybe then she could help keep the colony safe for good. The morning light seeped softly through the narrow window of Maya's small room in Colony Kappa 7. Outside, the hum of machines had returned to its usual steady rhythm. The immediate danger of the oxygen crisis was over, but Maya felt that the real challenge was just beginning. Her thoughts circled around the colony's fragile systems and the people who lived here. The engineers had done their best to fix the problem with the old recycler, but it was only a temporary solution. The real problem, the malfunction in the new oxygen recycler's core processor, still lurked in the shadows. Maya had to speak up. She knew the colony's leaders might not take her seriously. After all, she was just the lunch lady. But the safety of the colony depended on finding a permanent fix. She dressed carefully and left her room, heading toward the central command center where the colony's leaders met. The corridors were filled with workers moving quickly, all busy with their duties. Some glanced at Maya with newfound respect, but many still only saw her as the woman who served meals. At the entrance to the command center, Maya hesitated. The heavy metal door was marked with the colony's symbol, a shining star surrounded by 3 rings. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Inside, Commander Hale sat at a large table surrounded by other leaders, scientists, engineers, and security officers. Their faces were serious, and the air was thick with tension. Commander Hale, Maya said quietly as she stepped forward, "I would like to offer my help." Hale looked up, surprise flashing in his eyes. "Maya, what help can you offer? We already have our best engineers working on the problem." Maya met his gaze with steady eyes. "I know, but I've been studying the oxygen recycler systems. I believe I can find a solution to the core processor problem." There was a pause. The leaders exchanged uncertain looks. Dr. Soren, the colony's chief scientist, spoke next. "Maya, it is unusual for someone without formal engineering status to be involved in this kind of work. Do you understand the risks?" Maya nodded. "Yes, sir, I understand. But I have experience with machines. I just want a chance to try, Commander." Hale studied her for a long moment. Finally, he said, "Very well. You may work with the engineering team, but understand this: if anything goes wrong, the colony could be in serious danger." Maya's heart pounded, but she nodded. "I understand." She left the room with a mixture of relief and nervousness. The engineers were waiting for her in the control room. Joran and Tira gave her cautious looks, unsure whether to welcome her or not. "We're glad you're here," Joran said finally. "We could use all the help we can get." Maya smiled softly. "Thank you." For the next hours, Maya worked alongside the engineers. The problem was complex. The core processor was damaged in a way that made it impossible to repair with the tools and parts they had. Worse, shutting down the processor for a full reset could cause the entire life support system to fail. Maya studied the system's blueprints and data carefully. She asked questions, took notes, and looked for patterns. Slowly, a plan began to form in her mind. "What if," Maya suggested one afternoon, "we don't try to fix the core processor directly? Instead, what if we create a bypass system, something that can take over the critical functions temporarily, until we find a permanent fix?" The engineers looked at her with interest. "But the colony doesn't have spare parts for that," Tara said. Maya shook her head. "Maybe not new parts, but old equipment. Machines that were replaced but still work. If we can connect them with the current system, we can relieve the processor of its heaviest load." Joran frowned. "It's risky, but it might be our only option." Maya worked late into the night, drawing diagrams and calculating how to connect the machines. She tested her ideas on small models and old equipment. Her persistence began to change the mood in the control room. Engineers who had doubted her before now listened carefully. Some even asked her questions, hoping to learn from her approach. Days passed, and Maya's plan started to take shape. The engineers gathered parts from storage: old pumps, valves, wires, and control units. Maya showed them how to connect everything, explaining each step with calm confidence. Finally, the team prepared to activate the bypass system. It was a tense moment. The whole colony's fate rested on this fragile setup. Maya took a deep breath and pressed the activation button. The bypass system hummed to life. Screens on the control panel showed oxygen levels stabilizing. Slowly but surely, the pressure on the damaged core processor eased. A cheer broke out among the engineers. The colony was breathing easier again. "Commander." Hale entered the control room, his face serious but proud. "Maya, your idea saved us. You've proven that courage and intelligence can come from anywhere." Maya smiled, feeling a warmth she had never known before. For the first time, she was seen not just as a lunch lady, but as a valuable part of the colony's future. That evening, as the colony settled into a calm night, Maya returned to her small room. She looked out at the stars and thought about how much had changed in just a few days. The people who laughed at her before were now looking to her for answers. But Maya knew this was only the beginning. The core processor was still damaged, and the colony's survival depended on a permanent solution. With quiet determination, Maya promised herself she would keep fighting for the colony no matter what. Days passed after the success of the bypass system. The colony breathed a little easier, but the heart of the problem still beat faintly in the core processor of the oxygen recycler. Maya stayed close to the control room, working with the engineers, and learning more every hour. At first, many engineers kept their distance. They were not sure if Maya truly belonged in their world of circuits, codes, and machines. But her quiet strength and sharp mind slowly changed their minds. She helped solve small problems and suggested ideas no one else had thought of. One afternoon, Joran called Maya over. "We need your help with something," he said, handing her a small circuit board covered with tiny wires. Maya studied the board carefully. "This is part of the core processor?" Joran nodded. "Yes. It controls many functions in the oxygen recycler. But it's damaged. We can't fix it here." Maya frowned, thinking deeply. "Have you tried to isolate the damaged sections, Tira? Join them?" "We have. But the damage is complicated. The board sends wrong signals, confusing the whole system." Maya looked at the circuit board again. Then she remembered something from her studies years ago, an old technique engineers used when modern tools were not available. "What if we use a manual override?" Maya suggested. "We can create a small device to correct the signals before they reach the main system." Joran and Tira exchanged looks. It was an old-fashioned idea, but it just might work. Maya smiled. "I can build it, but I'll need some parts from the workshop." They agreed and sent her to the workshop, a dusty place filled with old machines and forgotten tools. Maya felt at home here. The smell of metal and oil reminded her of her childhood. When she first learned to fix small gadgets, she found the parts she needed: wires, switches, small circuit pieces, and began working. The engineers watched, amazed by how quickly and carefully she moved. Maya's hands were steady, and her eyes focused. Hours passed. Maya connected wires and soldered tiny parts together. She tested the device again and again, making sure it would work perfectly. Finally, she brought the device back to the control room. "This manual override should correct the bad signals from the damaged board," she explained. "It won't fix the core processor, but it can help the system work correctly until we find a better solution." Joran installed the device and activated the oxygen recycler. The system hummed smoothly. Oxygen levels rose steadily, more stable than before. Cheers filled the room. The colony's life support system was working better than anyone had hoped. Commander Hale arrived, watching the scene with a smile. "Maya, you are full of surprises. Your knowledge and calm have saved this colony." Maya blushed but remained humble. "I'm just doing what I can." Over the next few days, Maya's reputation grew. People who had ignored or laughed at her before now asked her for advice. Engineers invited her to join meetings. Even Commander Hale spoke with respect. Yet, Maya stayed grounded. She continued working in the mess hall, serving food with a warm smile. To her, the kitchen was as important as the control room. It was where people found comfort and strength. One evening, as Maya cleaned up after dinner, a young engineer named Keen approached her. He looked nervous but determined. "Maya," he said softly, "I want to thank you. You've changed the way we think about teamwork. You remind us that talent can come from anywhere." Maya smiled kindly. "Thank you, Keen. We all have something to offer. Sometimes we just need a chance to show it." That night, Maya sat by her window, looking at the stars. She thought about her journey from the lunch hall to the heart of the colony's survival. She knew the fight was not over, but she was ready. The colony had many challenges ahead, but Maya believed in the strength of its people and in herself. The colony's atmosphere had changed. Where once there was doubt and laughter toward Maya, now there was respect and hope. Yet, the core problem of the oxygen recycler remained. The damaged core processor still caused concern, and every passing day was a race against time. Maya knew the bypass system and manual override had saved the colony temporarily, but they were not permanent answers. The engineers were running out of options, and the colony's leadership was growing restless. One afternoon, as Maya sat in the control room reviewing data, Joran approached her with a grave expression. "We've hit a dead end," he said quietly. "Our tools and spare parts can't fix the core processor. We can't shut it down without risking a full system failure." Maya nodded. Understanding the seriousness of the situation, the oxygen recycler was the colony's lifeline, and failure meant disaster. "I have an idea," Maya said after a moment. "It may sound strange, but it's worth trying." The engineers leaned in as Maya explained. "We know the core processor is damaged in ways we can't reach. But what if we build a parallel system, a smaller, simpler unit that can take over some of the processor's most important tasks?" Jorn frowned. "Like a secondary processor? That sounds risky." Maya shook her head. "It's not about replacing the whole processor. Just the critical parts enough to keep the system stable until we can repair or replace the main unit." Tira looked skeptical. "But do we have the parts or the time to build something like that?" Maya smiled softly. "We have old parts in storage. If we work together, we can create a hybrid system, old technology and new working as one." Commander Hale, who had been listening nearby, spoke up. "Maya, this is your call. If you believe it can work, you have our full support." With that, the team began gathering every usable part from the colony's storage: old processors, control panels, wires, pumps, and valves. The workshop was filled with the sound of tools, the hum of machines, and the steady voices of determined workers. Maya took charge, organizing the work with care and precision. She drew diagrams, assigned tasks, and tested every connection. The engineers worked closely with her, learning from her calm confidence. At times, the task felt impossible. Parts didn't fit, connections failed, and machines broke down. The colony's air pressure sometimes fluctuated, reminding everyone how close they were to danger. But Maya never gave up. She encouraged the team, reminding them that every problem had a solution if they worked together. Days turned into nights as the colony's small workshop became a hub of hope and action. Maya's hands moved quickly but carefully, assembling the hybrid system piece by piece. Finally, the moment came to test the new system. The colony's leaders gathered in the control room, watching the screens nervously. Maya stood before the main panel, her finger poised over the activation switch. "Ready," she said softly. With a steady breath, Maya pressed the button. The hybrid processor whirred to life. Lights blinked, screens flickered, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, the oxygen levels began to climb steadily. The system hummed smoothly. The colony's air became clean and fresh again. Cheers erupted. In the control room, engineers and leaders smiled with relief. Commander Hale turned to Maya, his eyes shining with gratitude. "You've done the impossible, Maya. You saved us all." Maya smiled, her heart full of quiet pride. She had faced doubt and laughter, but she had never stopped believing. Later that evening, Maya returned to the mess hall. The workers greeted her with smiles and nods of respect. One of the young engineers, Kian, approached her. "I never believed the lunch lady could do what you did." Maya laughed softly. "I'm just a person who didn't give up." The colony had learned an important lesson that strength and talent could come from anywhere. As Maya looked out at the stars beyond the colony's walls, she knew that this was just the beginning. Challenges would come again, but so would hope, and Maya was ready. The days after the successful repair of the oxygen recycler felt different in Colony Kappa 7. The usual hum of machines carried a new meaning, a sign of survival and hope for Maya. The change was even more personal. No longer was she just the lunch lady who quietly served meals in the mess hall. Now, she was someone the entire colony looked up to. Maya's mornings began not only with preparing food, but also with meetings in the control room. Engineers invited her to discuss new ideas, and the colony leaders asked for her advice on other systems that needed attention. One morning, as Maya walked through the busy corridors, she noticed how people smiled and greeted her warmly. Some of the same engineers who had once ignored or mocked her now stopped to ask questions, or just say hello. In the mess hall, workers who rarely spoke to her before now gathered around her table, sharing stories and laughs. Maya felt a deep sense of belonging she had never known. Despite the change, Maya stayed humble. She knew the colony's safety depended on everyone working together. Her heart was still with the simple tasks: cooking meals, cleaning tables, and listening to the stories of those who worked hard every day. One afternoon, Commander Hale called Maya to his office. She entered the room, feeling a mix of curiosity and respect. "Maya," he began, "your work has saved this colony. Your courage and skill have earned the respect of everyone here. I want to offer you a new position, Chief Technical Advisor." Maya's eyes widened in surprise. She had never imagined such an honor. "I'm grateful," she said softly, "but I also love my work in the mess hall. I don't want to forget where I came from." Hale smiled. "You don't have to choose. We need someone like you bridging the gap between people and technology. Your background and kindness make you perfect for this role." Maya thought for a moment and nodded. "I will do my best." With her new position, Maya began training engineers and workers alike. She taught basic machine knowledge to those who had no formal education and helped create stronger teamwork among the colony's different groups. Her story spread beyond Kappa 7. Other colonies heard about the lunch lady who saved her people. Maya was invited to speak on communications channels, inspiring others to believe in their own hidden talents. Back on the colony, Maya's days were full of meetings, teaching, and planning. But she never forgot the importance of the mess hall. Every evening, she returned to serve food, her smile bright and welcoming. One night, as she cleaned tables, a young girl approached her shyly. "Are you really the one who fixed the oxygen recycler?" The girl asked. Maya nodded gently. "Yes, but it wasn't just me. It was everyone working together." The girl smiled. "I want to be like you someday." Maya placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "You can be. Believe in yourself and never stop learning." As the stars shone outside the colony's windows, Maya felt a quiet peace. She had earned respect not by changing who she was, but by being true to herself. Her journey was a reminder that heroes could be found in the most unexpected places. The sun rose over Colony Kappa 7, casting soft golden light across the metal buildings and quiet streets. The colony was alive with activity, but the mood was lighter than before. Hope had returned, and the people moved with a sense of purpose. Maya stood by the large window in the control room, watching the workers prepare for the day. Her thoughts drifted back over the past weeks, the fear, the struggle, and the unexpected triumph that had changed her life and the colony forever. Once, she had been invisible to most people, the quiet lunch lady who prepared food without complaint. Now, she was a symbol of strength and courage. But Maya knew her journey was just beginning. News of her success had spread beyond Kappa 7. Other colonies sent messages of congratulations and requests for advice. Maya was invited to join the Colony Alliance, a group working to improve life across the stars. She felt honored, but also aware of the challenges ahead. Technology on the colonies was fragile. Resources were limited. The people faced dangers from space itself and from within. Yet, Maya believed in the power of people working together, learning from each other, and never giving up. That morning, Maya walked to the mess hall as usual. The workers greeted her warmly. Today, there was a special energy in the air. A small group gathered near the entrance, a group of children from the colony's school. They held handmade signs with drawings of stars, rockets, and machines. One little boy stepped forward and handed Maya a small book. "We made this for you," he said shyly. Maya opened the book. Inside were drawings and messages from the children, thanking her for saving the colony and showing them that anyone can be a hero. Her eyes filled with tears. She knelt down and hugged the children gently. "Thank you," she said softly. "You are the future. Remember, the stars are not far if you believe in yourself." Later that day, Maya met with Commander Hale and the colony's leaders. They discussed new plans to improve the colony's systems and prepare for any future emergencies. Maya shared her ideas for training programs and community workshops. She wanted to help everyone, no matter their job or background, to learn and grow. Commander Hale smiled. "Maya, you have changed this colony in more ways than one. Your wisdom and kindness have brought us together." Maya smiled back. "We are stronger when we work as one." As the days passed, Maya found balance between her work as chief technical advisor and her role in the mess hall. She knew that both were important. One evening, as the colony's lights dimmed and stars filled the sky, Maya sat quietly on the roof, looking up at the endless universe. She thought about how far she had come from a simple worker laughed at by others to a respected leader who had saved countless lives. Maya felt hope for the future, not just for herself, but for all the people of the colonies. She believed that no matter where someone came from, their strength and courage could shine. The stars were no longer distant dreams. They were the path ahead, and Maya was ready to walk it.